come into our chat and show us that,
You see us?
yeah,
I don't know. I believe someone will come up, and certainly there'll be a replay. So,
okay. So, to answer your question, I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm a senior medical student a long time ago and far away. I was at a noon lecture in the hospital, and we're hearing from a gerontologist, a specialist in aging. And I remember this as clear as I can see you today, Carolyn Shapiro. He said, "You're senior medical students. You know thousands of diagnoses. Let me tell you what's really happening to older people. They're losing their muscles. They cannot stand or walk with stability. They fall on their osteoporotic hips. And back in those days, they died from that. Now the surgery's gotten
beginning of
so,
the end.
yeah, the surgery's gotten so much more dramatic these days that they can live, but not a lot longer once someone fractures a hip. And that's what he was telling me was really happening to older people. They were losing their bone, they lost their muscles, they got fractures. And of course, as a physician, I get to see that in living technicolor, as in my blessed, beloved mother in law when she was still alive. She was standing in her kitchen. She turned to the right. She was already unstable on her feet. She fell onto the tile floor. She fractured her shoulder, her pelvis, and her arm, and was in rehab for 3 months, osteoporosis. Because I'm going to shift now and talk about bone. And I can remember being a freshman in medical school, getting an anatomy lecture. And because it was startling to me, these were surprising events. And the professor was saying, you know, when we think of bone, we think of something hard and fixed. You may have to mute, Carolyn. There's a little bit of a crackle on that mic.
Okay.
Um, we think of something very hard and very fixed, and no tissue is fixed. There's no such thing. All tissues are active. Bone is a very biologically, physiologically, metabolically active event. The bones, everyone who's watching, if you got a reasonably healthy turnover, the bones that were present in your body 7 years ago, they're not there anymore. They've been totally broken down and replaced by new bone. Bones are metabolically active. Every cell, tissue, and organ is metabolically active in that way. It's part of the phenomenal, staggering, difficult to wrap our minds around beauty of the human body. For example, yeah, red blood cells. You don't have a single red blood cell in your body, providing you've got a healthy turnover rate that was there 3 months ago. All of them have been broken down and recycled, and new ones are replacing them. It's a freshening up. This is the ultimate in replenishing your makeup. This is replenishing your makeup. You don't do it once a day, you do it constantly. Well, bones, they don't metabolically turn over and replenish and develop new bone as rapidly as red blood cells do. They have a different pace. Their pace is every 7 years they've been totally replaced. That means their breakdown and replenishment rate is much slower, but it's there. And there's many things that govern that. And at the forefront of breakdown of bones are these cells called osteoclasts. They're cells. They go in there and they're picture them as little Pac-Man. They're eating up that bone, metabolically breaking it down, right? And then osteoblasts are rebuilding those bones. And the breakdown is governed by, lo and behold, powerful biochemicals known as hormones. And the rate of breakdown of bone by osteoclasts is governed principally in women by a hormone known as estrogen family, the estrogens. With sufficient estrogens, the bones are broken down at the proper rate. Without those estrogens, that rate of breakdown is accelerated. Hey, that's why almost 100%, not 99%, of women who go into menopause, exercise or not, and God, of course, exercise that is impactful, where there's a jarring, so to speak, like walking, for example, it puts a bounce on those bones. That's extremely important for bone health. You put someone to bed, they're going to lose their bones, and their bones are going to show up in their urine, and they're going to get big calcium deposits in their kidneys. You put someone to bed. It's very dramatic. You must have activity to keep those bones healthy and to keep them from breaking down too fast. But the other thing you must have to keep them from breaking down too fast if you're a woman is estrogen. So when women lose their estrogen, they start losing their bones, and it happens pretty fast. Woman goes into menopause, there's like a 5-year window there, and if you have not replenished that estrogen, the likelihood of you getting osteopenia and osteoporosis is extremely high.
So may I please, because you said a 5-year window and then there's that 10-year window, but does that mean that that's like set in stone? You've got to do it like that?
Everybody has a variable rate. But when I say a 5-year window, most of that bone breakdown, if you don't have sufficient estrogen, is going to take place in the first 5 years. And you can get into major osteopenia, that's a moderate loss, or osteoporosis, that's a severe loss, in 5 years. And that even pertains for a woman who's been on hormones for 30 years. The day she stops those hormones, stops her estrogen, she starts going into bone loss similar to when she first went into menopause. So this never lets up. In other words, women, you need your estrogen for your bones. And it's one of several major reasons how important estrogen is to the female body. So
May I ask? So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Oh, I wanted to ask. With the estrogens, it's not a one size fits all, right? Like there are a lot of different ways to do the estrogens that would help to replenish.
There's mediocre ways, but they're still great. So you do them. That's all you got. And there's elegant, excellent ways to do it. And I recommend that our audience download our book, if you haven't already, Happy Healthy Hormones, because in my non-humble opinion, we've laid down standard of care in that book. And this is what you want to follow, something like it. And yeah, whatever estrogens you have access to, hopefully they're being prescribed by someone who knows some things about menopause and treating women. Those estrogens are good for you. And if you read our book, you can tell no matter what estrogen you're on, whether you got too much or too little. And one of the ways we monitor women is by doing a bone density test, because there's several things that super matter to women. And one of them, are you losing bone? And that's part of the menopause method, a bone mineral density test at the proper rate. And if we see bone loss, we do other tests to see if you're actively losing bone. A lot of women who have osteoporosis, the worst of the bone loss already occurred. So one of the things we do, if I encounter a woman, she hasn't had hormones for 5 years and she's got a bone mineral density test that shows osteoporosis, one of the things we do right away is we check her urine for bone. Well, we're not going to see bone crystals, but we are going to see chemicals that come from the bone. As bone is broken down, it turns into biochemicals that come out your urine. And it's also in your blood. So there's a certain amount of these deoxypyridinolones, there's the name, DPD, deoxypyridinolone, that will be in a healthy woman's urine. But we don't want to see too much deoxypyridinolone, because that would mean she's in an active bone breakdown process. So number one, top of the list, protect those bones, estrogen. And did I say estrogen, Carolyn? Did I remember to say estrogen was important for bones? Did I say estrogen was important for bones? I'm not remembering.
No, me neither. But I read something about estrogen.
Yeah, estrogen.
Yeah,
Estrogen.
estrogen
Estrogen, right.
starts
Estrogen
with an E.
starts with an E, right. Estrogen. It's important for bones.
Yes, it is.
That's not the only
Very.
that's not the only hormone that's important for bones.
What?
Testosterone, thyroid, progesterone.
I was reading in your book yesterday about testosterone, and I had forgotten this particular page. It's important. We'll get into that later. But with estrogens, Dr. Rosensweet, some women are complaining of having a hard time with the estrogens, that the estrogens are making them jittery and anxious. And
Yes. Would you hold on to that question though, Carolyn? There's so
sure,
much more I want to say about bones. Um, the process of bone recycling. What I mean by recycling is you break down the old stuff and you replace it with new stuff. Break down the old bone, replace it with new bone. Well, there are cells called osteoblasts that lay down new bone. So it's a dance between osteoclast, breaking it down, osteoblast, building it up. And there's a lot of moving parts that the osteoblasts work with, and I'm going to get into those in a minute. But the osteoblasts are under hormonal inspiration. And the main hormone, the main biochemical, the only one I know of that stimulates osteoblasts to lay down new bone is progesterone. Well, the ovaries put out estrogens, progesterone, testosterone, and DHEA. So this isn't rocket surgery. When a woman's ovaries stop producing those hormones, you replenish all those hormones. You don't leave any of them out. I'm just giving you some extra reasons why you'd sure want to do a robust level of progesterone. When we see a woman has got osteoporosis or osteopenia, we max out that progesterone. We keep increasing the dose at night because progesterone helps with sleep until the woman wakes up the next morning and is groggy, meaning she's on an overdose of progesterone. Then we back that dose down a lot. Because a woman who's got osteoporosis, we want to get her to get maximum bone benefit out of the progesterone, among many other things that progesterone does. Now, bone health is related to other things. Yes, exercise with an impact, that does matter. And that's why I'm coming back to it, because I can picture, like I can see you, Carolyn, a man in his 20s who got ill and was put to in a hospital bed for very special reasons. And what happened to him was, without the exercise, being in a hospital bed, he wound up, his bones started melting, so to speak, and all the calcium in the bones wound up in the kidney, and he got something called a staghorn calculus, and that was blocking the kidneys, big calcium deposit in the outflowing tube of the kidneys, the ureter pelvis, and it was tragic because you don't. I'm mentioning this again because you want to do exercise, impact exercise. Swimming doesn't do it. Swimming's great. Swimming's an amazing exercise. Oh my God, it does work so many things, and maybe the exercise that works more muscles than hardly anything else does. However, it doesn't give that impact, that heel hitting the ground. Walking does. You don't have to do jumping jacks. You just walk, and you're going to be doing that impact that's sufficient to protect your bones. I'm lingering on the big stuff: estrogen, progesterone, and impact exercise. Now, in order to build new bone, you need some raw materials. What are bones made out of? Minerals and protein. So you got to have sufficient minerals and protein in your diet. Easy. From all throughout human history, if you were getting enough calories you were getting enough protein and minerals because the food supply was so rich. I mean, dinosaur meat, I can remember. Can you remember it, Carolyn? Wasn't it in one of those lifetimes we sat down to a meal of barbecued dinosaur?
We were really busy either running from them, trying to eat them, and flying all over the. Those were the good old days, Dr. R. I don't know what happened, but things changed along the way. But I do remember, yes, I do. It was 20 million years ago, but it was a lot of fun.
And we weren't talking to each other through the internet. We were sitting down across a rock, chomping on a dinosaur bone. If I remember correctly, it's a little bit back there in my memory.
Yeah, we're really old.
Let's just call it old souls.
Old souls.
So, protein and minerals. That means your diet's got to contain them. Uh-oh. In the 1930s, the United States Senate reported on a study that said American soils were no longer sufficient in minerals. And at that time, they commented on magnesium, which was one of the major mineral. 1930s. Has it gotten better? No, it's gotten much worse. Agribusiness has done so much damage. Large-scale factory farming has done so much damage to the food supply. So a piece of broccoli might look like broccoli, but it doesn't have the mineral content. Now, this has been studied by Rutgers University. I'm just not making this up. Now, the mineral content can be really good in organic. What's organic? All food on this planet was organic up until about 70 years ago. All food was organic. There was no such thing as organic food. It was just called food. It was organic. It was produced by natural farming methods. Am I frozen, Carolyn? Good. So it's very important if you've got osteoporosis to supply the raw materials that your osteoblasts can lay down new bone, and you need protein and minerals. They not only have to be in your diet, oh my goodness, midlife and beyond, you've got to be able to digest them and absorb them. Ho, 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 ho. So people who we're trying to help them with bone repair, we're also very often giving them digestive aids. The number one digestive aid by far is eat and relax while you're eating. And chew, 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 chew. You have no greater tool for digestion than chewing. The macrobiotic folks used to suggest that you chew at least a bite at least 30 times, if I'm remembering correctly. And when you do something like that, you're dealing with liquid in your mouth. There's nothing more powerful to assist your digestion than chewing.
And it also will make like things sweeter, like that you're eating. Doesn't chewing make things?
Well, that can be one of the outcomes because you're liberating some of that. I think it's from when you're chewing protein. But the main thing is about chewing is it's a physics thing. You break the food down into particles so small that you get much more surface area exposed to the digestive juices when you chew. Big deal, chewing. And then it's very often that we're going to supplement digestive juices because adults, we don't have as much digestive juices as a teenager does. You can feed a teenager 32 hamburgers, and in a half hour, it's going to be all digested. Or 31. I'm not exactly sure. Somewhere in the 30s.
Not so when you're 20 million years old. Doesn't quite work like that.
You feed an adult a hamburger at 7 o'clock at night, and good luck. You're liable to go to sleep and still feel that hamburger in your stomach. A lot because your digestion is not as powerful. So very often we'll supplement with enzymes. There's various forms of those, and also betaine hydrochloride to produce extra hydrochloric acid, because in order to digest protein and minerals, you need acid. And most adults are much lower in stomach acid. And that's a misconception because a lot of people have heartburn. They think, well, I must have Too much stomach acid, wrong. Don't have too much. You got too little on the lining of the stomach, it doesn't do well. And so you get tummy burn from unhealthy stomach mucosa that hasn't had the benefit of sufficient acid. So what am I doing about bones? I'm going, you got osteopenia, you got osteoporosis. You want to address replenishing those ovarian hormones and get them right. And we describe in detail in the book what getting them right means, right down to the 24-hour urine hormone test. And then you, for bones, I'm including thyroid hormone because, midlife, we've ran our glands and our hormonal producing systems a little too hard for too long. So it's not just the ovaries, it's the thyroid as well, and thyroid plays in the bone. And then it's the be sure that you're eating what bone needs to get produced. And then I want to talk about an elephant in the room. These bones melt for a variety of reasons. Estrogen not putting on the brakes on the osteoclast can melt your bones. Here's another thing that can melt your bones: stress biochemistry. Our bodies have a very delicate acid and alkaline balance, and stress biochemistry produces acidic metabolites. You get more acid when you're stressed biochemically. Well, the body has a very sophisticated, intense mechanism for you not to get too acid. It's not okay to get too acid. If you get way too acid, as in some emergency room situations, it's incompatible with living. But that's not the kind of too acid I'm talking about. Day-to-day life doesn't take you there. But you've got protection mechanisms. You produce too much acid in your body, and your body does something like combine it with stuff to neutralize it, to neutralize that acid. This is known as buffers. You buffer that acid. Baking soda is a great buffer for excessive acid. And you got a form of baking soda floating around in your blood called bicarbonate. And that's one of the most powerful buffers you've got. And you can combine that up with excessive acidity, and it'll produce carbon dioxide, and you'll blow it out your lungs. So if you see someone in acidosis, they're doing this. They're breathing rapidly because they're blowing off the excessive acid in the form of carbon dioxide that's been originally generated by carbonate. But that's only one of the buffering mechanisms. Your body cares a lot about buffering. Another thing that it can buffer excessive acid with is minerals. So it'll jump into your mineral bank account and pull up some minerals to buffer excessive acidity. And what's the wonderful storehouse strategic reserve of minerals in the human body? Dem bones. So if you've got excessive acidity, you're going to reach into those bones and you're going to extract the minerals from the bones. Your bones are going to donate up their minerals. It's another cause of osteoporosis, stress biochemistry, unbuffered. So one of the things we do when we're assessing someone with osteopenia or osteoporosis is, as I mentioned, we want to see if they're still peeing out bone metabolites into their urine. And we also want to check their urine for excessive acidity, because the urine is going to be another escape hatch for excessive acidity. We don't want your urine to be excessive acidity, and you can purchase something called pH paper. It's really acid testing paper. Drugstores have it. You want to get one with a wide range, somewhere between 4 and 8 or 9. If you've got a pH that's consistently on several urines a day, and we have our patients check their urine many times a day, every urination, to see how many of those urinations are excessively acid. Now, you don't have to remember all of what I'm saying because we have a chapter on bones. We think these bones are so important that in the book we have a chapter on bones, and all of this is covered. So Now, Carolyn, would you refresh my memory? Because I think that there was a couple other questions about bones embedded in that question.
There are, well, actually, we pretty much covered all of them. Women wanting to know if we really need hormones to reverse
Okay,
osteoporosis.
well, that's worth repeating. Absolutely. They're going to be at the highest priority in protecting your bones from further loss and also restoring bones. Because, yes, that initial question had this in it. Is osteopenia and osteoporosis reversible? So can you heal it? And my initial goal in dealing with any patient with osteopenia is to stabilize it, to see if there is ongoing bone loss and to stop the loss and get it to stabilize. Are we frozen, Carolyn? Would someone say something in the chat? I have a feeling we're frozen.
I'm seeing you just fine.
Okay, good. Glad to
Yeah.
hear. So our initial desire is to stop the decline in bone health and to get it to stabilize. And we do all those measures to get it to stabilize. And yes, there's absolutely women who reverse osteoporosis. We don't do a bone mineral density but once a year maximum, and we see improvement in bone mineral densities. So why I wanted to talk about the whole program and why I want to refer you to the book is everything we like to implement, deploy everything that I've listed there. Now, just because you have osteopenia and osteoporosis does not mean the big nasty is going to occur where you get a fracture. So part of anyone who's got osteopenia is you learn to do what many elderly folks do is we're more careful. We're more careful how we walk and how we stand. There's an ancient ritual called Tai Chi, which is done throughout many parts of this world, including the Orient, including China. And you get old folks doing Tai Chi together, and it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful ritual because it teaches you how to move with care, with sensitivity, with elegance, with grace. It strengthens your muscles. And I love Tai Chi because really anyone with osteopenia or osteoporosis or anyone called a human being, it's wonderful to learn how to move carefully and deliberately and consciously. Because even if you got osteoporosis, you don't have to fall if you're paying attention. Carolyn, can you still hear me?
I see you, I hear you. It's almost like you're sitting right here at my desk.
Great, great. So just because you have osteopenia and osteoporosis, you still got to do what we all got to do at my age. I've learned long ago to walk and pay attention, be present.
Well, it's like if you stub your toe or we don't realize like how fast I mean, that hurts a lot. And if you fall, you're going just as fast, right?
And how does someone stub their toe? And how does someone fall? Moving too fast and not paying attention, or moving
Correct.
uncarefully, not paying attention. When you hear, I've heard so many falls in being a doctor, and the story's always the same. Their mind was somewhere else. They weren't paying attention to the step. So there are many practices that pay a great deal of attention to where our body is and how to move it carefully and elegantly and excellently. Yoga is one of those. Tai Chi, Qigong. There's all these practices, karate, all the martial arts. They're all about getting us in our bodies and paying attention. So if you have osteoporosis, yes, there's lots of things to do, but where I would begin is learning how to be careful when you stand and when you walk and when you're walking about in this world, be careful so you don't fall, because if you don't fall, the likelihood of, even if you have osteoporosis, that you're going to get a significant fracture that's really going to damage you is very low. And it's fun. It's a fun thing to walk carefully and like a ballet dancer almost. You're walking consciously through your days. You're standing. You're walking carefully, consciously. It's fun. It's like a dance. You get to be in your body more and pay attention more. So that's one of the bottom lines I want to talk about. Even if you have osteoporosis, your main job is the job of anyone who's over 50 or anyone who's over 5. But it really counts when you're over 50.
Add that 0.
Yeah, it really matters that we're paying attention and we're being present. And we're being present in our body, and we're paying attention when we're walking and we're going upstairs and when we're standing in the kitchen.
Or going downstairs. That's even worse.
Yeah, you're paying attention. So I'm getting down to the basics of osteoporosis. It's learning how to pay attention when you're walking and talking and standing and moving.
So this may or may not be appropriate, Dr. Rosensweet, but what about someone who needs to have a hip replacement or a knee replacement? I mean, what am I trying to say?
There's a lot of people who have those fractures because of osteoporosis that do get hip replacements, that do get knee replacements.
Okay.
You know, I know I have spoken to many patients and that have had hip fractures or painful hips that have gotten hip replacements, and they're very grateful. And it doesn't mean that's not challenging, and it doesn't mean the recovery period, especially with a knee replacement, can't be prolonged with some important physical therapy. But they're miracles, and the state of orthopedic surgery these days is just astounding. And yeah, who wants to go in for surgery? Gee, sign me up. No, I'd rather not need it. But God, what we have available to us, and life is so precious, and it's such a gift to be on earth, that I bless anyone who makes the decision to get a hip replacement. And this is the time in human history to get one, because man, these orthopedic surgeons, their training and their tools are so excellent that yeah, if you need a hip replacement, you get it.
Thank you so much.
My mom fell out of bed when she was in an assisted living facility, bless her heart, when she was still alive. Just fell out of bed, fractured that hip. The next day, she was recovering with no pain from a hip replacement surgery. It was astounding. And she did walk again, although she did a lot more wheelchairing from that point on. But yeah.
It's an amazing story, and we'll get into that story again one day with your mother and your dear mother-in-law, and the hormones and their ages, and incredible.
And like anything else in medicine.
I can't see your eyes.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Anything else can you see them now, Carolyn? Is that
Yeah.
pretty?
Yeah.
Like anything else in medicine, an ounce of prevention is worth 32,000 tons of cure. An ounce of prevention is worth 32,000 tons of cure. Do it up front. Get into those hormones and health promoting activities young, if you can possibly do it, or whenever you can do it.
So, I know you have to leave 5 minutes early.
Yes, I do.
And a lot can be said in those 5 minutes, so I gotta get crafty here. And we will not be here on Thursday. We will resume next Tuesday. I have all those questions written out, so those are good to go. I want to, it's such a huge subject that we will revisit it. But hair loss. Again, I was at the doctor's office yesterday, my favorite place to be. And I was reading your book, and part about hair loss, and many women are feeling that this has to do with testosterone, um, too much testosterone. And I was reading in your book that it's very possible that it could be due to possibly low testosterone. I know it's a huge subject. We have like 4 minutes left, but maybe you can give us a little help here as to how to hang on to our hair.
Yeah, and this is a wonderful topic, and it's very relevant because many women and men midlife are losing their hair. It's very distressing. And there's a lot of moving parts to this, and there's a lot of reasons. And one of these times, Carolyn, we should invite in one of the nurse practitioners that is in the Menopause Method Mastery Program. She gave a lecture at our grand rounds about hair because she's an expert at hair issues hair. And then here's the big stuff with hair: thyroid hormone. And there's 4 thyroid hormone blood tests that we really want. And there's a long list of symptoms that occur with hypothyroidism. And you put it all together to determine, is there a functional hypothyroidism, which is epidemic. That means there's not thyroid disease, there's not frank hypothyroidism, but you're not putting out the level of thyroid hormones that you did when you were 28. And that really matters. And you can lose your hair from thyroid. It's one of the more common causes. So we always go down an investigative trail that includes a very, 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 very thorough human history. Human history, yeah. We're not doing baboons these days. And
Well, I am. I don't know about you, but
and especially basal body temperature and stool transit time. So I think we're going to have to pick up this topic next time, Carolyn. We want to evaluate that thyroid, and we want a free T3, free T4, TSH, and reverse T3. And the laboratory reference ranges are not the ranges that we go by. We go by optimal ranges, and they're far more stringent. They're far more narrow. They're far more what young people got going on. And I think first of thyroid, and then I think of estrogen. Oh yeah, hair and estrogen, man. Lose that estrogen. There's many women who lose their hair just from insufficient estrogen. And testosterone's tricky. You can lose it from too much, and you can lose it from too little.
right.
Moral of the story: get the testosterone right. So in order to do that, ultimately, you're going to need a 24-hour urine hormone test. Testosterone speaks loudly through symptoms. Also, but every woman loses her testosterone. Some women get too much testosterone for a very short period of time, but that does not last. So we want to examine all the hormones, and then the same thing. What's hair made out of? Protein and minerals. And then all of these things have multidimensional overtones. Why does one lose? Why am I losing that? Oh, does worry have anything to do with it? Yeah, so it's a big topic, and yeah, today I need to say sayonara early today.
Sayonara.
Yeah.
Tai Chi, Qigong, and Sayonara. So it's going to be a little bit of a minute before I see you again.
Yeah.
I'm going to wish you a wonderful time.
So,
And ladies, you know where to reach me. And let's wish Dr. R a fabulous, fabulous whatever it is you're doing.
traveling, so I'll be in an airplane at this time on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well,
So I'll see you next week, and I'm going to sign off. And always good to be with you, Carolyn.
it's always good to be with you too, Dr. R, and always with the women as well. And thank you so, so much. Have a great trip, and we'll certainly talk. And I'll get with everybody, and everybody will get with us on Tuesday.
All righty. Bye bye now.
Bye.